I'm Maddie Bellamy, 32 years old, an interior designer, living in Charleston, South Carolina. For most of my life, I thought I was invisible to my family, a footnote in their story. Maybe you can relate that feeling of always being the responsible one, the one who keeps her head down, works hard, and gets ignored. And then there's my younger sister Lily, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one who had the world revolving around her. I'm sure you've heard the story before, sibling rivalry, favoritism, the never-ending comparison. But the truth, it's been eating at me for years, and it's only recently that I've learned to stop pretending it doesn't matter. But let me take you back to the start. Before I continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is. Curious to see how far this story reaches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It all started in our perfect little house in Charleston, with my dad's lawyer's office on one side and my mom's therapy practice on the other. From the outside, we were the picture of success, but inside there was something else, a tension, a subtle inequality. As the eldest, I should have been the one who mattered most, right? But there was always Lily. She was the baby, the one who got the special treatment. I can still remember the first time it really hit me. I was 4 when she was born, and I knew something had shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about keeping her happy, keeping her perfect. When I think back on our childhood, it's like looking at a picture that's been warped over time. Everything on the surface seemed flawless. Mom and Dad both highly respected in their fields. The house in the best neighborhood, the private schools, the vacations that always looked so ideal in photos. But behind closed doors it was different. I wasn't supposed to say it, but it felt like I was just there. My role in the family was clear. I was the dependable one, the responsible daughter who kept everything in place. But Lily was the wild one, the artist, the free spirit who could do no wrong. And somehow she always got the attention, even when she was causing trouble. The first sign of favoritism came early, though I didn't have the words to name it at the time. When I was about 7, I wanted nothing more than a magician at my birthday party. I had seen one on TV and had begged for months. My parents promised it, and I was buzzing with excitement. But the day before, Lily got a cold. A mild one, nothing serious. Yet suddenly, my birthday wasn't a celebration anymore. It was just us at home, no magician, no friends, just a sad little cake, and my parents trying to console Lily while I sat there. And that wasn't the first time. No, it was a pattern. Every time Lily was in the spotlight, I was pushed aside. Every time I succeeded, I was given a pat on the back, but nothing to celebrate. Contrast that with Lily's special moments. Her birthdays were grand affairs. Pony rides in the backyard. Clowns, cakes, and decorations. When I had the flu on her 5th birthday, I was locked in my room with a babysitter, making sure I didn't spoil her big day. I remember looking out my window, watching her party unfold, feeling invisible. And my parents never saw it. They never saw how much it hurt. It was like I was supposed to be fine with it. I had to be. The first real betrayal I felt from my parents wasn't a grand event. It wasn't anything that would make the news or create a family scandal. It was just a small, everyday moment. But it sticks with me because it set the tone for everything that followed. I was in 8th grade when I won the state science fair. It was a huge deal for me. I'd worked for months on my project, stayed up late with my dad, helping me with the calculations and experiments. I was so proud. I remember sitting in that auditorium, holding my trophy, waiting for my dad to walk through those doors and see me. The place was packed, but all I could think about was the look on his face when he saw me up there, first place, the whole auditorium clapping. But he never came. Instead, Lily had a soccer game. She didn't even play, just sat on the bench. Yet that was where Dad was. When Mom showed up to my awards ceremony, it was at the very end, just in time for the last 10 minutes. She was apologetic, but in a way that felt more like an excuse. "I'm so sorry, honey. We had to support Lily." I tried to brush it off, but I couldn't help feeling the sting. And then there were the little moments that piled up, the times Lily's smallest effort was treated like an accomplishment. A C in math for her was celebrated with ice cream because she tried so hard. Meanwhile, my achievements, a simple nod and a good job before moving on. It felt like nothing I did could ever be good enough to compare to Lily's whims. And it wasn't just the big moments. It was every single day. I worked harder than anyone in my family gave me credit for. After high school, I went off to Boston University, juggling 3 part-time jobs to pay for everything myself. I was proud of what I was doing, but I always felt like it wasn't enough for my parents. They offered minimal help, their excuses always wrapped up in the same sentiment. We need to save for Lily's future, too. It stung. Here I was busting my ass to make ends meet while Lily was free to coast along. She didn't work. She didn't need to. My parents were always there ready to pick up the pieces. When she dropped out of college, they didn't even blink. They just enrolled her in another school. She switched majors multiple times, and each time my parents funded the change, no questions asked. I stayed quiet through it all, just keeping my head down. I graduated with honors and walked across that stage with the weight of my student loans on my shoulders, but I did it. When I called my parents to tell them about my graduation, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were less excited for me than for Lily when she made yet another failed attempt at college. The worst part was when they told me how proud they were of me, but the words felt hollow. "We're so glad you're making it work. We just need to focus on Lily's future right now." It was always Lily. It always had been. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I had always been the one who made things work even when the odds were stacked against me. After graduation, I found a job at a small interior design firm in Boston. The pay was barely enough to cover rent, but I learned so much. I spent nights and weekends refining my craft, knowing I had to prove myself in a field that wasn't kind to newcomers. Slowly, I began to build my own reputation. The hours were long and the projects were small, but I knew that this was the path I needed to take to prove my worth, not just to my family, but to myself. My first big break came when I landed a feature in Boston Home magazine. It wasn't much, but it was enough. That's when the calls from wealthier clients started coming in. Business started to boom, and at 27, I was able to buy my first home, a Victorian house in the heart of Charleston. It was a fixer-upper, but I saw potential. The house was falling apart, but the bones were solid. I was so proud. The renovation became my personal masterpiece, every detail a reflection of my growth as a designer and my independence from the family that had never truly supported me. I spent 18 months working on it, days and nights, every penny I made going into restoring that house. I had learned the art of transformation, not just in my work, but in my life. This house was more than just a home. It was a symbol of everything I had built from scratch. I remember the dinner like it was yesterday. I had just secured my biggest project yet, designing the interiors of the new luxury Archer Hotel in downtown Charleston. It was the kind of opportunity that could change everything for me, the kind of milestone I had dreamed about since I first set foot in the industry. But when I shared the news at dinner, the reaction I got from my parents was nothing like what I expected. I could feel it even before I said anything, this invisible wall between me and them. It was as if they were bracing for something. And when I told them, Mom barely looked up from her plate. "That's nice, honey," she said, sounding distracted. But then Lily spoke up. Of course she did. "I've got some exciting news too," she chimed in, cutting me off. "I have an interview at the mall next week. Assistant manager position." "Assistant to the manager," she corrected. But my parents didn't miss a beat. "That's fantastic, sweetie," Dad said, his face lighting up. "You're really starting to take charge of your career." And there it was, that familiar rush of disappointment that followed me everywhere. My own achievement, the thing that I had worked so hard for, had barely registered with them. Meanwhile, Lily's minor job interview at the mall was treated like a grand victory. It wasn't just about the job. It was about the difference in how we were valued. When I pressed on explaining the complexity and importance of my new project, Lily's eyes narrowed. "So, you're like picking out pillows and stuff," she sneered. I tried to keep my voice steady. "It's a bit more involved than that. I'm designing all the public spaces, creating room templates for the entire hotel." Lily's face contorted in a mix of sarcasm and jealousy. "Must be nice to have everything handed to you," she muttered, her voice sharp. The silence that followed was heavy. And when dessert was served, she suddenly remembered my news. "So this hotel thing must be fun for you," she said, slinging back a glass of wine. "Isn't that a little pretentious?" I stood there feeling the weight of my success become too much to bear. It wasn't just that she mocked me, it was the constant reminder that nothing I did was ever good enough, not in her eyes, and not in my parents either. The night everything changed was the night I should have been celebrating, the night I should have been able to look around my home and be proud of what I had accomplished. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. I had finished the renovation, every detail, every decision, every painstaking hour. My house was finally ready for a housewarming party. I invited a few close friends, clients, and some family. It wasn't a big event, just an intimate gathering to celebrate my success. After everything I'd been through, I wanted to share this moment with people who truly appreciated what I'd built, but it was my family as usual that ruined it. My parents arrived an hour after the party started. I greeted them, and they handed me a plant, a token gesture. It wasn't what I had expected, but I kept my disappointment to myself. Then, as I guided them through the house, I noticed they kept asking about Lily, their eyes searching for her in the crowd. "Where's Lily?" Mom asked, her voice concerned. "I didn't invite her," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. After the scene she caused at my cousin's wedding, I thought it would be better to keep this one drama-free. Mom frowned. "You know how sensitive she is. She'll be devastated." I didn't want to argue, so I lied. "I must have forgotten to send her an invitation." That was when the door slammed open, and in she stormed Lily, clearly intoxicated and furious. "Nice party, sis," she slurred, grabbing a glass of champagne from a passing tray. "Real fancy." I could already feel the tension building. I tried to guide her away from the crowd, to get her to calm down, but she jerked away from me. "Don't patronize me," she hissed. "You think you're so much better than everyone with your perfect house and your perfect life." I had always tried to keep my distance to stay above it, but tonight something in me snapped. I had put up with enough over the years, too much. "Lily, this is not the time," I said, my voice low but firm. "Maybe we can talk tomorrow, but not now." But she wouldn't let it go. She began walking through the house, mocking every detail. "Oh, look, the fancy light fixtures. How original." Guests were already murmuring, the atmosphere thick with discomfort. I could feel everyone watching us, the scene unfolding in front of them. And then she made a move that I couldn't ignore. She grabbed the frame from the wall in my living room, an old painting I'd restored. With one quick motion, she threw it to the ground, shattering the glass. I froze, I couldn't breathe. "Lily, what the hell are you doing?" I finally managed to shout, but she didn't stop. The damage was done. She left shortly after, storming out without a word. My parents followed Mom, pausing only to say, "You know how she gets. You shouldn't have excluded her." I stood there surrounded by my shattered things, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. Every piece of furniture, every detail I had worked on so carefully, was now tainted by her jealousy. The house that had been my sanctuary, my victory, was now a symbol of the toxic dynamic I had tried to escape. The morning after the housewarming, I woke up to a reality that felt like a punch in the stomach. I could barely move at first, the weight of the destruction too much to process. But as I stumbled down the stairs, the cold draft hit me like a slap. My eyes darted to the living room, and that's when I saw it, the bay window, shattered glass, scattered everywhere on the hardwood floor. I couldn't understand it. I thought maybe it was a dream, some horrible twist of fate. But no, as I moved through the house, the damage was undeniable. My brand new sofa had been slashed, stuffing spilling out like some cruel joke. In the dining room, the Persian rug that I'd spent weeks searching for had been soaked in bleach, the colors fading like memories I didn't want to lose. My heart sank as I moved through each room, my grandmother's china shattered on the floor. My office torn apart with my design books scattered in puddles of water. The master bathroom mirror had been defaced with a message in bright red lipstick. Not so perfect now. I stood in the middle of it all, feeling the hollow emptiness fill me. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, calculated. The one thing I had never wanted to admit was now impossible to ignore. Lily had done this. There was no other explanation. I remembered the security system I had installed during the renovation, the cameras that covered the exterior of the house, and the entryway. My hands shook as I went to the computer and pulled up the footage. It was clear. At 3:00 a.m., Lily was caught on camera using the spare key I had once given my parents for emergencies. I watched as she moved through the house, destroying everything in her path. She didn't stumble. She didn't make a scene. It was methodical. The footage ended with her standing in front of the camera, staring straight into it with a satisfied, almost smug smile before leaving. She knew what she had done. She was proud of it. I felt sick, but also a sense of resolve I hadn't felt before. This was no longer a matter of family dysfunction. This was a criminal act. The decision to press charges wasn't an easy one. There was a part of me, perhaps the part that had always tried to keep the peace, that wanted to let it slide, to pretend that Lily didn't mean it, that she was just having another breakdown. But the video left no room for denial. I called the police immediately. The officers were kind but efficient, taking photos and making notes as they documented the destruction. They gave me a clear path forward: file the report, submit the footage, and move forward with pressing charges if I wanted to. They even estimated the damage over $100,000. I didn't hesitate, but I knew there was one thing I had to do before taking the final step. I needed to confront my parents. I had spent so many years hoping they would see what I had done, hoping they would finally acknowledge my worth. This time, I wasn't going to let them make excuses. When they arrived, their faces said it all. They had no idea what to say. I guided them through the house, showing them the destruction room by room, detailing every item that had been ruined. I was calm, almost detached, as if the weight of it had already numbed me. But when I got to the security footage, I knew this would change everything. I clicked play, and there it was. Lily walking through my house, methodically destroying my home, with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. Mom's face went pale. Dad just stared, his mouth opening and closing, unable to find the words. I didn't need their words, though. The video was enough. But even with all this evidence, their reaction was not what I had hoped. "Harper, we need to consider how much stress Lily's under." Mom started, tears brimming in her eyes. "She's been struggling for so long, she's just acting out." My heart sank, the familiar pattern resurfacing. I couldn't let it slide this time. "No," I said, my voice steady. "This isn't about stress. This is about Lily choosing to destroy my life, and you've been enabling her for years. She's 29 years old. She's not a child." "She's your sister," Dad shouted, his face reddening. "You're supposed to forgive her. This is family." I didn't flinch. I had heard this before. Family isn't about letting someone walk all over you. It's about respect. And I haven't had that from you or Lily for as long as I can remember. I could see the hurt in their eyes. I had never spoken to them like this before, but for once it felt right. "I'm pressing charges," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "This stops now." They tried to argue, to convince me to let it go, but it was no use. I had made my decision. There was no going back now. The days following the confrontation with my parents were a blur. I had made the decision to press charges, but it didn't feel as empowering as I thought it would. There was still the weight of years of conditioning, of hoping my family would finally see me for who I truly was, instead of continuing to idolize Lily's destructive behavior. I stayed quiet as my parents called, leaving tearful voicemails begging me to reconsider. They couldn't understand why I was doing this, why I was choosing to go against family. They promised they would pay for the damages, cover the deductible for the insurance claim, and somehow magically make it all go away. But I couldn't make it go away, not this time. I knew I had to stick to my guns. So I focused on what I could control, rebuilding my home and my life. I started therapy with Dr. Amelia Foster, a family trauma specialist. I needed to unpack everything, the years of being ignored, the subtle yet pervasive favoritism, the way I had been expected to always forgive Lily's transgressions. Dr. Foster helped me understand something I hadn't fully grasped before I had been cast into the role of the strong one, the one who never needed help, who always forgave. But I didn't want to be that person anymore. Weeks passed, and I began to see a shift in myself. I was no longer walking on eggshells around my parents. I stopped waiting for them to validate my success and started validating it myself. I began to rebuild not just my home, but my sense of self. The legal process with Lily was long and drawn out. She was arrested, but she was bailed out by our parents, who still couldn't fully accept the truth. The charges were pending, but I didn't care. It wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring that Lily would finally face the consequences of her actions. And then a month later, I got a call. My dad wanted to meet. I felt a familiar twinge of anxiety, but this time I was stronger. I was different. I agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop. When I saw him, he looked worn older somehow, his usual confidence stripped away by the weight of everything that had happened. I've been thinking," he said quietly as we sat down. "Your mother and we've been going through therapy. We've been trying to understand how we failed you, how we let Lily manipulate us for so long." The words landed like a bomb, but they weren't a bomb of devastation, they were a bomb of hope. "I'm sorry, Maddie," he continued, tears welling in his eyes. "We failed you. We should have seen you. You've always been strong. You've always been capable. We should have been proud of you, but we kept making excuses for Lily's behavior. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to yell, to scream at him for all the years of hurt. But another part of me, one that was starting to heal, simply nodded. "I'm glad you're finally seeing the truth," I said, my voice steady. "But this is the reality now. I'm not going back to who I was. I've built my life, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of me." He nodded, his face full of regret. "I know. We'll support you. We're going to make it right." And for the first time in my life, I believed him. It wasn't a perfect resolution. I wasn't ready to forgive Lily, not yet, and I wasn't sure if I ever would be. But I had found my voice, and that was enough. As for my home, it was finally restored. The last of the repairs were completed exactly 1 year after the vandalism, and I hosted a small gathering to mark the occasion. This time, it wasn't about showing off or proving anything. It was about celebrating my journey. The people who had stood by me, Jason, Megan, and even my therapist, were the ones I invited. And as I stood in the middle of the room, looking around at the people who truly supported me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. I wasn't defined by my family's dysfunction anymore. I was defined by me. Sometimes the hardest truth to face is the one hiding in your own family. The quiet favoritism, the excused abuse, the years of being told to be the bigger person while your needs are ignored. I spent most of my life trying to earn love that was conditional, hoping that if I worked hard enough, stayed silent long enough, they'd finally see me. But I've learned that peace doesn't come from their approval. It comes from reclaiming your own voice. Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with someone you love? A moment where protecting your peace meant walking away. If you're comfortable, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if my story resonated with you, please subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that they are not alone and that boundaries can be an act of love for yourself. Thank you for listening. Truly.